The next morning, as I parked my new car in front of the courthouse, everyone came out to admire it. While standing around and discussing its virtues, the sheriff came tearing out of the courthouse. "Quick, Edna, get back in your car. We have an emergency and I'm requisitioning you and your car. I'll tell you all about it on the way out." Grabbing my purse and coat, I yelled to Cleta, "Carry on, old girl. Don't know what it's all about." We drove like mad to Frisco while the sheriff filled me in. The the ambulance, is down in Colorado Springs in the garage. Maybe you didn't know, but the local undertaker is the county ambulance driver, and his hearse is the ambulance. This is an emergency. A lady in Frisco had a ruptured hernia, and the local nurse is with her. We'll have to rush her down to Denver to Colorado General Hospital right away. Now, I thought, I understand the sign one sees by the highway as one drives into Dillon. It says, "Please slow down. Dillon is a one-hearse town." "There's no other station wagons in the county," the sheriff continued. "We'll put an army cot catty corner in here. The nurse can sit on a camp stool in the back in case she has to use the needle if the lady comes to." Arriving in Frisco, two men loaded the patient, and the nurse climbed in. "You'll have two more passengers," the sheriff told me, "but they'll sit up in front with you." I looked to see who these passengers were. Here came a man with no legs pushing himself ahead with his hands. His body was on a round disc which had small wheels. The sheriff hoisted him onto the seat next to me. Then another man got in, so we were three across on the front seat. "This here's the woman's husband," the third man announced. "I'm the undertaker. I'm going along in case you need help." "Well, if you're going to be of any help," the nurse said, "you can hold this hypodermic needle for me. It's filled with morphine, but it's all wrapped up in cotton. Handle it carefully. I might need it if she begins to come to." The undertaker took the needle, holding it in both hands. Over Loveland Pass we headed, soon going 80 miles an hour. I thought to myself, I was the one who once had said, "You'll never catch me driving this pass." Loveland Pass was a winding, bumpy dirt road. At one point, we were halted by the road crew just as they were pulling a big tree across the road. The undertaker jumped out, shouted to the men. Soon they cleared a way through for us. The sheriff had radioed ahead, the undertaker informed me. "There will be a state patrolman at Idaho Springs. He'll drive ahead of us and give us clearance." We reached Idaho Springs and beyond. No patrolman showed. Over Floyd Hill and on over Mount Vernon Road, all two-lane highways, we tore. We arrived at the hospital on the east side of Denver and into the ambulance entrance in 1.5 hours from Frisco. The nurse asked the undertaker for the needle. "Why, it's empty!" she exclaimed. The undertaker looked sheepishly. "Guess I got so nervous at the speed we was traveling, I must have kept plunging into that wad of cotton." "Good thing she didn't need it," the nurse mumbled angrily. As the nurses were wheeling the woman into the hospital, I looked at the white car with lights flashing which pulled up behind me. "Lady, I tried to catch you all the way from Idaho Springs, but boy, you were traveling." He added, "Your shiny new car ain't so shiny no more. I saw it in Idaho Springs yesterday, just before you bought it." With so many days of working indoors, I treasured Sundays. When it wasn't ski season, we would try to work outdoors on Sundays, peeling the logs for the new addition or cutting winter firewood. One golden fall day, we decided to explore above the old town of Tiger and up into the area known as the Swan. Max's old Army Jeep would go anywhere. We drove up a dusty logging road until we came to where it ended. Oma, the children, and I found a faint trail winding up through the timber-lined grass, while Max explored an old mine dump. We climbed up and around a low hill. The wind was strong, making the dry grasses wave with a sighing sound. Winter is coming, winter is coming. All of a sudden, around a curve of the hill, we saw an old log cabin. What a cold, windy place to build a cabin, I thought. The door stood open, and we entered right into the kitchen. The wood stove was covered with newspapers. They were recent, not old papers of years ago, but only a year old. What a horrible smell, I explained. It seems to come from this room off the kitchen. I tried to push open the door, but could only get it to open a couple of inches. The odor was overpowering. Rolf said maybe a bear got in there and couldn't get out and died. I decided we'd better get out. This cabin is in really good condition, I said. I'd like to explore it more if it weren't for that awful smell. Shepherding the youngsters, Oman and I soon joined Max. He was more interested in the ore samples he was finding. The next morning, back at work at the courthouse, I mentioned our day's adventure in the old cabin. The sheriff had come in to check on a driver's license and overheard me. "Where's this cabin, Edna?" he asked. I tried to tell him just where it was. It was about noon of the next day when the sheriff came back into the office. "I've got a Jeep and a driver out here, and I want you to come with us. Show me where that cabin is that you found last Sunday, Edna." It being a beautiful day, I had no objections. About 2 hours later, we came to the spot where we had parked our Jeep and started climbing. The wind was still whistling through the grasses as we wound our way up and around the hill. There was the cabin just as I had seen it 2 days before. But the door is closed. We had left it open like we found it, I explained. "Maybe the wind blew it shut," the sheriff suggested as he pushed it open. "Be prepared for an awful smell from that room beyond," I warned him. "But that door of that room is open." I was puzzled. "The smell is gone." We three peered into the room. It had a bunk bed built into the side of the wall. A patchwork quilt covered the bed, which was neatly made up. "This is really weird. I can't understand what that smell must have been. I thought they'll think I made this all up." On the ride back down the rocky, dusty road into Tiger and back to the highway, the sheriff told me, "You must have wondered why I wanted to see that cabin, Edna. It seems the sheep herder has disappeared up in this area. No trace of him at all. The owner of the herd," he continued, "came up to check on the sheep and couldn't find the herder. He didn't know of any cabin around the area. You see, the herders start below us in Eagle County and keep pushing the sheep up into the high country over the mountains till they get to Loveland Pass. There they load them up on big semi-trailers. He, the owner, found the sheep above Montezuma, so the herder had pushed them that far. I remember having seen herders and their sheep up the Chihuahua Gulch, and in the fall coming down the slopes of Arapahoe Basin. I remember the ski trail crew up there cooking some lamb stew now and then. Well, it might have been a bear in that room, but I doubt it. We'll probably never know what happened to that sheep herder either." The sheriff sounded quite disappointed. "These old mining shafts make wonderful places to lose something if that something is dropped or falls down into one." The day didn't seem so lovely anymore. I knew what I would always wonder. what I might have seen had I persisted in getting the door to that bedroom open.